Hi everyone. My name is Yana Lyashenko, and I'm a Google logistics specialist. I specialize in delivering a business's target audience with the required parameters. And, when people often ask me what game I would compare setting up performance or any advertising campaign to, more specifically, they usually ask about Google shopping performance. I would compare it to those old strategies. Games like those where you choose a race, and your task is to develop and improve your race, conquer territories, and so on. And I like this comparison. Every race has its own advantages. Some are more resilient, some can use magical tricks, some are better at mining gold, and so on. Well, it depends on which strategies won. For me, it was a long time ago, but something like that. So, in all these strategies, your products act as a kind of race, meaning your turnover basically depends on the strength, power, reach, and demand for these products. Your product, someone else's brand, a competitor, an analog. That is, there are a lot of interesting nuances about how to influence your sales to scale up. In other words, you could capture markets, or like one of my clients recently asked me to do an analysis for them to understand how much of the market they actually cover. Not just what's in the ad account, or how well or poorly they're performing compared to competitors, but the niche itself as a whole. So, this is a really interesting topic, and I'd like to try to explore it on my YouTube channel in a series of videos. And the first one will be me re-recording my old video. You can see here that it was filmed 2 years ago. It's called How to Find Best-Selling Products. How to look for these best-selling products. It was filmed for the old Merchant Center, the previous version. Here I showed how to find these reports, how to work with them, and so on. It's a really powerful tool, especially if you're selling products and your goal, for example, is to scale something in local markets or to understand which products are going to sell now and which won't. It's actually a really powerful thing. Yes, they did cut some of the functionality there a bit, but it's still available. By the way, there will be another video coming out on the YouTube channel. I'll be showing a service called Svit Price. It was developed by Ukrainians. There, you can even analyze prices across a huge number of competitors. Honestly, I think it's top-notch when it comes to monitoring the activity and operations of your competitors. Let's get back to this video. I'll show you where to find a roughly similar report in your Merchant Center next, and how to use it. What's been kept, what's been removed, because Google still restricts access to certain products in some ways. But in any case, we'll look together at what you can actually access in this situation. By the way, these kinds of reports are really useful to review, especially if you have a very large product assortment and you're selling some branded goods, or you're launching your own brand, but there's also a competitor for that brand. So, to find these reports and use them accordingly, let's go into our Merchant Center next. Here we have the Analytics section, and you'll see a bunch of rows there: Summary, Products, Online Stores, Special Reports. You can click through all of these options. If for some reason they're not there, you should enable them. They can be enabled directly in the Settings section. You need to go to Add-ons and Enable, just like I have here, Advanced Data Source Management and Special Reports, in case you don't have them yet. We go to Analytics, click on Products, and here we'll see several tabs. Traffic. Well, this account of mine is brand new. It hasn't been used for advertising yet. The merchant here has only recently passed moderation. Competitors, popular products, prices, promotions. So not all of them will be available. Here you can take a look, as you see, but some of them have a certain description of themselves. Here, shirts and tops are specified in my category, because right here, this is my t-shirt with the Google Logistics logo, it's here. That's why it even determined the format, which audience buys there, and which countries. It's quite useful, especially when you have a very large reach across different market formats. So I recommend you take a look. Here, everything will of course be empty for me, because I haven't launched anything here. But what do we need? First, we need to go in and find this block called Top Selling Products on Google. Here we click on View All Products, and then the next navigation block appears. There are also popular brands here, of course, but we'll be looking at popular products, because I think you can figure out the brands on your own. What do we have here? we have the option to search by country. Please take a look. Unfortunately, not all countries are available here. As far as I remember, there are some countries here that, for example, are very difficult to analyze. It seems like Israel isn't here. I could be wrong. Yeah, Israel isn't here. People have asked whether it's possible to get such access in Israel. Categories. There are actually a whole lot of them here. Toys, food, there's a ton of stuff, so you'll definitely find at least the closest category for yourself. The same goes for the time period. There's also a weekly or monthly analysis here, and you can choose, because the analysis in the Merchant Center, let's put it this way, that popularity ranking isn't based on demand, but rather on how often things are bought. Unlike, for example, when you can look at something similar elsewhere. We have Google Trends, but, for example, for Ukraine we can't really see anything here. If I select, for example, Ukraine, and choose the Shopping tab, I'm interested in purchases over the last 7 days. That's the maximum it can show, but it doesn't give me any analytics. So this is just access to some large, statistically significant data. Here I can see, well, for example, Jordan's, right, and here, Harry Woodland. So I won't see anything here that I could immediately use. See? So, how am I supposed to use this? Well, okay, Jordans. Here is a review. Jordans. What are these Jordans? This is all from the point of view of demand, some kind of traffic. What do they buy? We can find out here. As you can see, for the month of May, Hoka is in the lead here, but Jordans are not. You see, there are Nikes here, Brooks, New Balances, Birkenstocks, Adidas. You can look at the same thing in any other country. For example, one of the closest and often popular ones is Poland. We can take a look, yeah. Adidas, well, now it's all together, clothing and accessories. You can also filter by a specific type of clothing. For example, footwear. Let's select footwear, for instance, and apply it, and we can see what exactly is being sold in Poland. So, the difference between this report and others is that here you're shown exactly what will be sold. Of course, they've already removed some metrics here by default, because earlier, tights were available here. So, there was quite an interesting situation, but they don't remove tights now, because it's currently a competitive advantage. Well, as for the offers, there's no availability shown here. That's already related to our store specifically. So you can search for the same thing. For example, toothbrushes. These are holders, holders. Where do we have toothbrushes here? For example, let's take a look. Why, for example, do people in Poland buy Oral-B, 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 Oral-B? There are also Philips. Say so. For example, the States. What do we have here? Philips, a Nike, Colgate, Oral-B, Philips, Oral-B, Sensei Protobank, and then some water picks show up. Okay, but we can look not at toothbrushes, but, for example, check here by states. What did we have here? Jordans. Let's try to find these Jordans. Let's take popular brands. For example, let's not take toothbrushes, but shoes. And where are Jordans? Do you see our Jordans? We need to find these Jordans. The Jordan brand. And we don't even have any results. See, that's how it is. Sales are pretty weak. So, most likely, they've tweaked it a bit here. It doesn't work quite as perfectly as, for example, it did in some previous periods. The name is Mr. Jordan. Yeah, here, something's really off. It's not giving us any statistics by state for May at all. Oh, wait, these are toothbrushes, shoes. The name is Jordan. No, there is something about Jordans, but as you can see, the ranking story is already much lower. So this way you can find what people are buying. The same goes for cosmetics. Bags, suitcases, for example, sure. What can we do here? You can find toys, some games. What games do we have here? For example, games with cool accessories, electronic games. On Disney Interactive Digital. See, here you go. Tamagotchis are back in fashion. Right, some smart calculators. So you can already find some trends. The advantage of this report is precisely that it shows how often these are bought. The lower the number, the higher the popularity ranking. Plus, this is a really cool thing, because if there are products there that match yours, then it's even better, since you can take your popular products. Well, in my case, this is an empty merchandising. So as not to blur anything out, I'm not showing any top products to avoid exposing, for example, a client, but if you sell something similar, you can also compare your popular products. Plus, it's very useful to understand in general whether you're actually bringing your top products, the real bestsellers, into the display. Because the most common structure you see online, for example, is to put your top products into a separate campaign and work with them in some way. They're supposed to sell, but the problem very often is that you might even pick the wrong top products. So in reality, you might have a powerful set of products that could generate significant turnover, but you don't know about it because Google isn't showing them in the ads. Google can't evaluate for you whether a product will be a top seller or not, its profitability, margin, and so on. That's why you should also keep an eye on this. Very often, we might see one set of products here, while you could be selling something completely different. Well, you can check out all the brands, right? This is the United States, clothing, accessories. See, you can take a look here. It's the same story with the popularity ranking, how often they're bought. Plus, if you see these little plus signs, it definitely means that this product is starting to grow very actively in demand overall, and accordingly in its traffic, so you can take advantage of that. In general, product selection is quite a complicated thing. You need to constantly work with it, constantly review it. It's an ever-present story. Well, there are also competitor reports, but that's only if you're interested. I can also make a video on how to review this block, how to analyze it properly. If you're interested, let me know in the comments and we'll take a look. This is a really interesting thing to help you understand what you have and what you don't. Well, unfortunately, this report is no longer available. It used to be really good here, with relative demand. You could also filter by rating system, but unfortunately, they've removed that block now. It used to be a bit more extensive, a bit more comprehensive, but I think Google, the Googlers in general, want to remove a big part of the product analysis. This is roughly what it looks like. Yeah, I can try to show you another merchant center with more advanced analytics. If you're interested in what you can see here for those who already have statistics, let me know in the comments. I'll make a separate video about it.